Shabbat Shalom. It seems like every time we turn on the news, every time we open the newspaper, a new person comes up. Somebody else accused of doing something inappropriate. Sometimes it's simple, other times it's much more complicated. But each time we wonder, is it true? Could it possibly be? And each time, ultimately we find out that it is true. We're a reeling country in some ways. Once we've opened the Pandora's box, there's no return. But in some ways, this road is a good road to travel. This is clearly something endemic to our society that needs to be expunged. And the reality is, until all people feel comfortable coming forward, we're not finished. In this week's Torah portion, and for that matter in next week's Torah portion, we see two things that happen that I think are very troubling and that I think remind us exactly the time period in which this kind of culture is rooted. First, this week we see Jacob meet Rachel and Leah. And it's very clear from the text that Jacob judges them by their appearance. He looks at Rachel and thinks she's beautiful and falls in love with her. And Leah, not so easy on the eyes. Next week's Torah portion, we'll read about the rape of Dinah. It's a troubling time in the Torah portion. It's clear, at least to this reader, that women in the time of the Torah were not treated as equals. They were not treated the way we men would have wanted our daughters to be treated. And so as I read this week's Torah portion and know what's coming up in next week's Torah portion, I'm saddened by that piece of the text. But I'm also reminded that the setting, the time of the text of our Torah, is a time that is completely unlike today. We're somewhat apologetic sometimes about the Torah text when it provides something or shows us something that is difficult for our modern sensibility to understand. We try to understand it in its day. And if we do that in this instance, then we're faced to confront the reality that this behavior, this sexual inappropriateness, all of these things that are coming to light right now, comes from a culture that had rooted in thousands of years ago, and yet we are unable to completely eradicate in our society today. So now we have to live with this difficulty of finding out each day that new people who we thought were above this kind of behavior are in fact not. But I can only hope and I can only pray that the lesson of the narrative in the Torah and the painful lesson of all of these people being strong enough to come out and tell their stories, that ultimately this will lead to us getting rid of this problem once and for all. Shabbat Shalom.